Friends, I had a thought, something I haven't shared with you yet, and I think probably now, given everything that's going on in the country, would be a worthwhile moment to share it. By the way, welcome to the program. Sam Murjovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. They're sorry, having a little moment here. Yeah, recovering Californian, that is me. Also, a lawyer by day. Very much enjoy my job, and then enjoy, of course, the couple hours that we share here on the program, Monday through Friday. So the thought I had, I've spoken a lot about why my parents came to the U.S. in terms of why they left communism. But I was having a conversation today with a friend, and I think there's a little more to the story that is instructive for our current situation in the U.S. as we here flirt at scale with institutionalizing socialism. The Democrats now are not hiding it, right? They are coming out. They're calling themselves Democratic Socialists. There's a little guy over there in New York who's running a slick campaign, and he's convincing a bunch of young professionals, some making 100 or two or 300 even $1,000 a year, that they need to be little communists. People are falling for it. So here's the story I wanted to share. Of course, you know that my parents, born and raised in Czechoslovakia, what is now the Czech Republic, and my dad born just during the war, my mother just after, and then both of them experiencing 20 years of communist rule. They grew up in it. They experienced it. They lived it, and they escaped when they had an opportunity, 1968, when the Russians invaded, and they went, both of them, to Western Europe. They ultimately, together, settled in the Netherlands. Holland, the Dutch. It's all the same place. And they're in the Netherlands, they're in Holland in the 70s. And the only reason, I'll tell you this, the only reason that they left and went to America was because they feared that communism, the Soviets, would spread across Western Europe. They had escaped the horrors of radical left-wing ideology. They went to the West. They thought that they would be, I don't know, welcomed with open arms. Certainly, the Dutch were welcoming, but they thought that, ideologically speaking, they would have found their new home, right? They're living in the West. They're living in, a free country, capitalism, etc. They found something quite different. The prevailing ideology was left-wing. They had to endure, and I think that's the right word, endure people telling them day in and day out how great socialism was. Oh, you're from Czechoslovakia, wonderful. Then you must know how great socialism is. My parents were like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you insane? How great communism is. It was horrifying. We didn't have food. Oh, no, you must be mistaken. And quickly, my parents would get shunned by liberal Western Europeans when they found out that my parents weren't willing to make stuff up and lie about what they had experienced during their time living behind the Iron Curtain. Now, back to why my parents left. I think you understand a little bit where I'm going with this. My parents left because they feared that eventually the West that they grew up seeking would end, would cease. That politically, the cancer of socialism, of communism, would spread and irretrievably poison the Western world. And I would argue, by the way, that to some extent this has happened, and that my parents' fears have unfortunately come true, because Western Europe, I mentioned this a lot, is committing cultural suicide. I want to go down that road. So 1977, they packed their bags. And, speaking of immigration, my mom had a job offer from Shell. Lucrative. My dad was a journalist, wrote for a paper there in Amsterdam, and their careers were on the upswing. They gave up economic lucre, okay? They gave up careers that were certainly paying better for what amounted to just my mom having a postdoc teaching assistant job at Northwestern University, right? So pack their bags and basically do the uh, least economically viable thing for the sake of being free and going to America where they felt they would be safe from the horrors of socialism. Now, fast forward to 2025. Imagine how people like my parents are feeling. Feeling's not the word. What are they thinking when they watch the world go gaga for socialism, for Zohran Mamdani? Listening to this cretin, and don't tell me, Sam, why are you talking about New York again? Folks, I'm warning you, this guy is dangerous. And if you're listening to conservative influencers, people on our side that are going, let New York just burn in hell. If they want Zohran Mamdani, they can have Zohran Mamdani. A caution to that way of thinking. Communism has a nasty way of being catchy, of spreading. When Zohran Mamdani and his radical left-wing little puppets bankrupt New York, what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to spread their influence in order to steal more money to fund their socialistic paradise. To quote the Iron Lady herself, the great Margaret Thatcher, communism ultimately goes belly up when they run out of other people's money, right? What is Zohran Mamdani going to do when all of a sudden the billionaires and the centimillionaires leave en masse? How many taxpayers in New York fund the budget? I remember in California, around the time that I left, I looked at this. It was a few thousand people in California that provided for something like 60% of the California state budget, just income tax numbers. A very small group of individuals were carrying most of the burden. Numbers are pretty shocking when you get into a percentage of like 20, 25% of the budget. It gets into like hundreds of people. So what's going to happen in New York when you and I as conservatives go, well, you know what? I live in Nevada. I live in Omaha. I live in, Idaho, Texas, Florida. Screw them. Let's just let New York go the way of the commies. Well, I know how free stuff works, right? There's no such thing as free stuff. Somebody's going to pay for it. And that somebody eventually is going to go, I'm not going to pay for it. Screw this. You all go F yourselves. I'm not going to pay for it. And so then they leave because you can just opt out of the city. The Republican in New Jersey is leading. You see this, by the way? The governor, it's possible that we Republicans could seize New Jersey. Now, I bring this up because New Jersey is across the river from New York. You don't have to leave, you have to go far. It's not like moving from Orange County to Las Vegas. That's 270 miles. You go literally 5 miles, 6 miles, and leave the state. You can opt out. How many people are going to opt out? And they won't go necessarily to New Jersey. They're going to go to Florida. They're going to go to Texas. They're going to go to places that respect you for being a contributor, for being an employer, for being someone who's bringing wealth into the jurisdiction. And the Mamdanis, whether it's in New York, whether it's at a state level like Gavin Newsom in California, they're going to want to take over the entire country to get at the money that they view as belonging to them. It's not your money. If you're a self-made guy or a gal and you have a business and you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in taxes every year, and you think, hey, I'm doing my part. I make money. I'm paying my taxes. That's not how the left views you. All of that money is theirs. And if you pay careful attention, you listen to them, they'll come for it. I'm not giving up New York. I got asked about that. I was on with Steve Gruber on Real America's Voice, and we come up with this Mamdani thing, and I said, well, I don't like people who say just give up New York. And Steve agrees with me, and so we had a moment about it. But folks, I'm telling you, the Democratic Party is going to a dangerous and dark place. On one hand, they're embracing communists, like flat out communists. And on the other hand, they are dipping into some dark levels of violent fantasies. When you combine socialist ideology with a lust for blood, for murder, you start talking about it openly, fantasizing about it, adding a little splash here and there of to your bloodlust with some little, anti-Semitism and whatnot. Just wait. This is a toxic brew. I could destroy this country faster than you realize. So don't shoot the messenger, speaking of violence. I'm just here warning you. Now, I'll get through here what I think we ought to do about it, but let me just back this up with some stuff. It's hugely important. It's been on my mind and certainly laying in my craw for a bit.